jQuery Mobile is one of the coolest ways of being able to rapidly create a mobile optimized website. Now, it's not the only way to be able to create mobile optimized websites. There's some other great tools out there. There's Bootstrap, there's JQuery. I encourage you to try them all out. But the reason why I like jQuery Mobile is that there's a lot of documentation, and it's really easy to get up and running very quickly in building out a jQuery mobile website without having to learn a lot of custom code or techniques. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you how you can get up and running and build out your first jQuery mobile website in really a matter of a few minutes. What I have here is I have the jQuery mobile website for you. You want to be able to go down here and either download jQuery mobile and have it running it locally off your local desktop, or you can do what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the CDN version, which allows me to pull off from the popular websites. I think it's from being pulled from Google. So I've come to jQuery's mobile website, selected download. I'm going to scroll down and I've got the latest stable versions of jQuery Mobile, and this is the code that I want right here. It's this section, and let me show you what we've got. We've got three pieces of code. We've got the first piece is the Cascading style sheet, the CSS style sheet for jQuery Mobile. It's the latest version. We then have the reference to jQuery, because jQuery Mobile itself is in some ways really just a very big plugin for jQuery. So we're using jQuery as our foundation, and then we have the jQuery Mobile bits themselves, and it's all minimized so it's the smallest files possible. I have a document all up and running, and here we have just a standard HTML document, nothing crazy here. If we were to look at this, it would be just a blank page in our web browser. To add in the elements to make this document so that it will run and look great as a jQuery mobile solution, all we have to do is take the code that we just pulled off the download page on jQueryMobile.com and paste it into the header section of our HTML. So I'm just going to paste it in. And here we have that content in there. I'm just going to save that, and I have it running here on my desktop. I'm going to open that up. And you're not going to see anything. There is a blank page. Now we have to go ahead and start adding some content to our HTML. So I'm going to pull up my text wrangler, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create my first page in jQuery Mobile. Now, jQuery Mobile has an interesting concept in that instead of creating multiple pages where you go from one web page to another web page and they're separate entities, the way that jQuery Mobile actually really likes to work is it likes to load up all of the content for your application in one single page. It's a little bit difficult to get your head around at first, but once you're used to the concept and what jQuery Mobile is looking to accomplish, it actually makes building out your solutions much easier. Because what you can do is you can take advantage of all the processing that's happening within the web browser. So for instance, on a mobile web browser, we have limited CPU and RAM. Even with the latest devices, the RAM is still fairly limited. When you're loading everything up once inside of the web browser on the device, you're not having to go back and reload that content over and over again. So we're going to go ahead and show you what a page looks like inside of jQuery Mobile. So I'm going to copy over. I have some code here that I'm going to step through in just a second. I'm going to go into the body section of my HTML. I'm going to paste in some code. So what I have here is really a collection of div tags, and these div tags have different roles in what they present on the page. So if we look at our main div tags, so this is the top layer, the main div tags, you'll see that there is a new attribute in there, and it's called data role. jQuery Mobile has a bunch of specific data role properties that you can control. So in this instance, we have defined it as the data role of page. That means that what we're doing here is creating a page that shows up inside of our web browser, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. We can also then give that page an ID, and that becomes really important when it comes for linking. But in this instance, I've just called it page 1. The default when you're looking through the code is just to call it page. I find that a little bit confusing because I typically go through, and if I'm creating an application where I have 2 or more pages, the IDs will be page 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. If I have one that doesn't have an ID of a page with a suffix of a number, I find it kind of mixes up with my coding. So what we have is the first div defines that we're actually using a page, and then within our page we have 3 key elements. So within our page we have 3 main sections. The first is the header, the second is an area for putting in content, and then the third is footer. All of these are just HTML, so if I expand the header, you'll see that it's just a div tag, and what we're using is a h1 element, and we're calling this one page 1. And then you'll see with the area for content, it's just a div tag with an area for p, and we have for the third area, which is footer, we have just again a h4 element, and we have just different HTML. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll actually save my file first. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to show you what this looks like inside of Chrome. Now I'm testing this in Chrome. This is a nice big web browser. But what you can see is we have everything is now laid out on the screen. What's interesting with the layout that we have here is that it's formatted, and we're actually using the new design that came from Jquery Mobile. It came out in February, and this is actually a flat design referencing the flat design concepts that are being used on Windows, iOS, and now Android. The new release for Android is going to have a more flatter design. And it seems to be just kind of the trend at the moment, and I kind of like it. It's nice, very simple. But you'll see that everything is laid out. We have our header section, we have our footer section, and then we have our content. Now, because this is just HTML, I can come in here and I can change this information. So instead of calling it page 1, I may want to call this first screen. And I can come in, I can refresh, and voila, first screen. If I want to, I don't even have to have the header. I can take that out. It's not required. And there the header is gone. I'm just going to put it back in because I like having the header there. So I'm looking at our web browser. I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page so you can see that we have our header and our footer. One of the things that you'll notice is that the footer is floating in the middle of the screen. Now typically when you have a mobile app, the footer and the header are fixed to the top and the bottom of the screen. By default in HTML, the way that we're presenting the content, the header will always be on the top of the screen. But what about that footer? We can actually come in, and one of the additional attributes that we can actually put in here is what's called data position. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to select data position, and I'm going to force our footer to stick at the bottom of the page. Voila, there we go. Easy as that. I didn't have to really do any coding. The CSS is already formatted, so it pushes the footer to the bottom. What's interesting is that when iOS 7 came out, it actually broke some of this formatting, and so the folks over at the Jquery and Jquery Mobile are open source projects. The teams got together and they actually fixed this problem, which is fantastic. So now I have it so that I have my header and my footer are correctly presented on my screen. But what if I want to have multiple pages and I want to go from one page to another? And we talked a little bit about the different paradigms that Jquery Mobile has, in that you don't create multiple pages. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to create a second page. And typically what I like to do is I like to throw in some code so I know that I am working on a different page, because this will start getting a little bit complicated. So I'm going to just put in a note here, second screen. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy the first screen. I'm going to paste that down here. I'm going to change a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to change the ID so that it now is page 2. So I have page 1, page 2 here, and I'm going to change this to second screen. going to keep everything else the same. I'm going to save my content. I'm going to go back to my browser. I'm going to refresh my browser. And by default, the first screen is there. How do I get to the second one? Well, I can actually do that because I have used IDs. I can just link to the second screen. So I'm going to come into the data area where I have my content, and I'm just going to add in a anchor tag, and I'm going to href equals, and I'm going to do # page 2, and then close my anchor tag, and then below here I'm going to, in my second page, I'm going to change this to anchor tag href equals # page 1, because what I want to be able to do is link back to page 1. And I'm going to change the text here, page 1, and this will be page 2. Go back into Chrome, I will test that, and now I can click on the link and I go to screen 2. I can go back to screen 1. And it looks like I have multiple screens, so I can come in and I'm going to copy this section and I'm going to create 2 more screens. And this, if I come through, this will be third screen. We'll call this one 3, and this will be fourth. We'll call this one 4. Make this one third screen, fourth screen. Now we need to be able to see whether or not we can actually get to those screens. Now I can continue using what I was doing before, where I can create just links, and well, let's just add in a couple more so we can see what that looks like, and then we'll do something a little bit more creative. So we'll go in, so it's page, so this will be, let's change this to screen, because that's really what it is. Screen 2, screen 3, screen 4, and we'll get rid of the final reference. We'll change our links so that we're actually connecting to the correct screens, and this is where you can see where if you keep consistent with your IDs and names, it becomes a lot easier to actually create links. And we'll refresh our screen, and now we see we have links to 3 screens. So I'm going to click on screen 3, and you see this changes, so we're now on our third screen. Click back to screen 1, screen 4, there we go, fourth screen, and we can go back. Now having links, as you can see, it's fine, but it doesn't look very touch intuitive. So we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to change the way things look for the links on the first screen. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of these links, and I'm still in the content section, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste in a data list. Now the thing that's cool with doing data lists in Jquery Mobile is that if you go through and you change if you create just a data list, it will format it. I'm just going to take out the data role here, and if we go over to our web browser, there's just a standard data list. It's just bulleted links. But if I go in and I add in a data role and call it list view, what happens now is I actually change how the list is presented on the screen. And here we have just the standard list view. I can click on any of these links and they'll take me to the screen I want to go to. You actually see that we have animation, which is the standard animation for Jquery Mobile. I encourage you to play around with the code and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks very much.